Well, here's my portfolio. I laid it out to sort of observe it and take a look at it, and I thought it would make sense to show you what I did before focusing on the ones that I'm especially excited about. I should say that these items were difficult to cull, and I realized quickly that it was mainly because I don't have a classroom of my own, and most of these accomplishments come from practicums and my Taekwondo class. So I'll just real briefly, I'm going to show you what I chose for each competency, and then I'm going to zero in on my two sort of most favorite ones. For competency 1, assess knowledge and skills of students in relation to term content goals and district standards, determining the knowledge and skills each student needs to accomplish them. I chose these assessment materials, which I collected for two reading groups when I was in EA at Concordia, and then this one for a case study for one child, and this is going to be one of the ones that I'm going to share with you in more detail. For the second competency, design instructional plans that incorporate knowledge of students' developmental abilities, interests, abilities, and learning accomplishments consistent with content goals and district standards, I'm going to share this wonderful PowerPoint that I did for Soul of Education, and also the vigorous verbs, which was an activity that I designed for one of my reading classes. And for competency 3, establish a classroom climate conducive to learning, I am sharing my moral discipline PowerPoint, which talks about teaching kids, quote unquote, the right thing to do when they're in their classrooms. And also, I talked about diversity in the classroom, also in the Soul of Education class, which is right here. For competency 4, implement instructional plans that employ knowledge of subject matter. I have my Theories of Teaching and Learning paper, which sort of talks about some of the stereotypes of kids and how teachers respond to kids. And then this, which is another one of my crowning achievements, is the boys Taekwondo program that I created at Concordia School. I'm going to talk a little bit more about this in a sec. So then, for the 5th competency, collaborate with parents, colleagues, and members of the community to provide internal and external assistance to students and to their families if needed to promote student learning. Since the schools that I work in are almost always completely diverse, I talked about multicultural issues, and it's an interview that I had with one of the parents, which turned out pretty good. And chapter 2 of my action research proposal, which I'm going to get into again in more detail in about a minute. For competency 6, evaluate students' progress in learning, refine plans for instruction, and establish alternative goals or environments for learning when necessary. This is the background information of the kiddo that I did the case study of, which I'm going to talk about. And also, it's an analysis of how he sees the world literacy-wise. For competency 7, document and report the progress of students in achieving content goals and district standards. This is my formal assessment tool critique that I did in my diagnosis and assessment of learning class. And then chapter 5 of my action research project, which was the proposal. Boy, that action research project is all over the place, and you're going to see why in a second. For 8A, using emergent research on teaching, learning, and school improvements to enhance practices. My classroom assessment toolkit. One of the most practical and useful projects that I've done, and this was in my diagnosis and assessment of reading problems class also. And it's already been serving me well. And then we have Why Boys Fail. There's a lot of new data out there, and I thought the emergent research about how our society is not boy-friendly when it comes to literacy would be practical to share. For 8B, participate in designing, evaluating, and improving opportunities for teaching and learning in an educational institution, we have my self-assessment, which is always a work in progress, isn't it? But this was something that did not come easily, and I find it very enlightening when I refer back to it. And then 3 article responses. It's always good to do some background stuff on articles. I actually enjoy those most in my master's classes. And finally, 8C, collaborate with one's colleagues to enhance job performance and advance teaching as a profession. So, in my class with Ron Dexter, God bless him, all of my reflections are really relevant. And this one was watching a teacher and listening to a teacher talk about her classroom. And this other one is also a pre-conference and a classroom observation with a plan that I developed while I was watching this classroom. So these teachers, mainly the teachers at Fabian, where I did most of my research, were very, very helpful for me. Okay, so let's see here. So the first thing that I wanted to share with you a little bit more in depth was this amazing experience that I had with a boy named Phoenix, who was quote-unquote in the lowest of the low. He was in the intensive reading group where I worked at Fabian. And what it looks like is, here's some background info. And I showed Dibble's results, and I'm completely against Dibble's, but that's a whole other recording. But I wanted to show the progress that he had made while we were together. And then all of these content goals, his progress. And I love his handwriting here. He spelled the word tree C-H-R-E-E, which I thought was wonderful. That's not on this one exactly. But this is some of the writing that he did, which was a long shot from what he started with. And the summary of the entire experience. And then